Hey, Sven here. It's week 14.20.26, and I'm back with my latest build log for Rocket Routine OS. So we're already in April, which means the first quarter of the new year is already over. Technically, it's not a new year anymore, but it still feels like it. And last week in my update, I mainly talked about the topic of boilerplate. That is this base system that contains all the basic functionalities for B2B software, from multi-tenancy, multilingual support to design, templates, user management, and so on. And Rocket Routine is being developed based on this boilerplate. And now basically the question was, how do we get from the concept document, which now exists in version 17, how do we get from there to a programmable concept? So, of course, I could now start and say, here, Cloud Code, look, go ahead and create this or that function. But of course, that's not sensible and, above all, far too time-consuming, because then I would be tinkering with the software iteratively. When I started programming with AI assistants, that's exactly how I proceeded. I described an idea, and then a result came out. Then I took this result, looked at it, and then I said, there's a problem here and a problem there. And suddenly I realized, well, I'm a quality expert, and that means you have to do things right from the start and practice prevention and much more. And that's why I started thinking about how I could approach things differently. And this different approach led me to read through various concepts and ideas. And I said, okay, we need first a framework for a document that covers all the content and translates all conceptual things into technical descriptions, so that in the end I have a document that I can then give to the AI and say, here, now please program this for me. And from that, a PRD has now emerged. That is a product requirements document. And we've been working on it all week. Not full-time, but repeatedly throughout. Worked on it, improved it, worked on it, improved it, read it, spotted mistakes, and so on. And now I suddenly notice, well, it's consolidating into a version that I'm really happy with in the end. Why is that? Well, because I am working on this structure very focused and systematically, and in the end, a document comes out of it that I can say, in my 45 years of doing software, I've never had before. I've never seen anything of this quality. Because I myself, I was always pretty good at documenting when I developed software, but I've never done anything like this either. And I'd like to give you a brief insight into that. The document is now already well over 100 pages long. And the idea, of course, is that we take this document, and next week we'll tell the AI, this is your specification, and now start. Please start programming. And then I'm curious to see how things will continue. So I'll make myself a bit smaller here. And I've already opened the document here in the background. You can see this is already version 2.5. So that means, of course, we started with version 1, and then through constant revisions, it eventually developed into version 2.5. And you can also see today is the 3rd April, which means the latest version was created just this morning. Now let's just go through it in a reasonably systematic way. That means, first of all, I have a very, very important piece of information here. This is not being programmed from scratch, because otherwise the AI would first start by saying, well, we need a database and we have to set up user login and so on. No, everything that's listed here is already included. So authentication, multi-tenancy, WebSockets, etc. Then here is a heading. Why some things are underlined and others aren't, I have no idea, but it's not relevant. And basically, we've divided the development of this document into 3 phases. First, all the basics. So to start with, what is it actually about? Then an overview of the product, which documents and sources we used, what technology stack we're using, then some conventions on how to code, and so on. Then once this part was finished, and once this iteration was completed, we were at version 1.7 or something like that. And then we said, okay, let's move on to phase 2. Apparently it wasn't updated correctly here. So that means here we talked about the data model, about roles, about basic functions, the API, and security topics. And once that's done, and I'm not quite finished with that yet, then phase 3 will follow, where basically the entire concept is broken down into an implementation plan. That means these 2 sections will be added at the end. All right, so let's quickly go through this here. I mean, there are so many details. It's well over 100 pages by now. Of course, that's not practical, but the point here is to first take a general look at what exactly needs to be included in such a document. In a multi-tenant SaaS application, then a variety of different configurations. Tenant settings that are now uniquely tailored for the product. So we have 3 different ways in which the product can be used in terms of scope. Then the integration of LLMs, then the domains. These are basically the 11, well, you might call them departments in a company where work can be done. Not all of them have to be used from the very beginning. That's why, for example, you can see here at the start, it's about strategy, it's about marketing, it's about product, and it's about finance. And then you can unlock these different domains as needed. Then there's work in progress, since we work with Kanban boards, among other things. Then the way we work. Do we have agents, do we have people, or do we have both? So let's scroll down a bit further. That's pretty much everything already. Somewhat more concrete functions are included here. Then, of course, with a system that might also be used internationally, we also have to set up all the locale settings, which are described here in great detail. First, an overview of the product. Who is the target audience? What types of users are there? What principles are there included? I can already see I have well over 100. We're at 187 pages. Then an overview of all the core modules, each time with purpose, entities, relationships, and key operations. And now you can, of course, imagine if a programmer, in this case the AI, is able to understand everything that's written here, then usually a good result comes out of it. And that's exactly what I want to aim for. Which documents were used? I'll speed things up a bit now. Otherwise, we wouldn't finish today. The technology stack, you can take a look here at which technologies are being used. Of course, there are pages and pages of various components, frameworks, etc. that are necessary. Then which database tables are there and how do they need to be extended? APIs, then all the tables with their contents are described here. The data structures of all these documents, well, just that alone is half a dozen pages. Yes, and it goes on like this. I'll scroll down a bit faster here. Then, at some point in the process, you eventually get down to the fundamental concepts it is built on, including various complex validation rules and so much more. So I really don't want to bore you with all of these details. I just want to show you that is the main difference. If I were to just say to Lovable, let's program a rocket routine OS, then something would come out of it. And that something might even look cool and could be used as well. But this here is a foundation that really takes everything to a professional level. And that's important to me as well. I mean, as I just said, I've been doing this my whole life, software and B2B software. And that's why, of course, I also want everything to work well. Let's scroll down a bit further. A little further down, tables, what else do we have here? Some kind of permission systems, so some matrix where you set who is allowed to do what. Yeah, so let's leave it at that. 187 pages. By the time the whole thing is completely finished, we'll probably end up with over 200 pages. And a 200-page document, I mean, you have to read that first. But the AI is patient with that. And my idea is that I then tell a project manager agent, this is your document, now get started and assign the right people, meaning a developer, a tester, and whoever else is needed. Then I want to try to get this implemented in as few steps as possible. You can look forward to it. I'll report next week on what came out of it. I'm really excited myself. I've already completed a few AI-assisted development projects, but never one of this size. So I'm very curious about it. We'll continue next week. Until then, have fun and check out our white paper. Sign up for the waiting list. If you're interested, everything is at www.rocketroutine.com. Here's our website. Yes, just sign up, join the waitlist. At the very bottom, you can sign up and also download the white paper. See you next time. Ciao.